This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Ad Hoc Cost Efficiencies Committees for February 17th, 2022 at 3:33 p.m. We have 6 of our members here. Maybe a couple others are going to join us. Sorry, 7 of us, counting myself. I guess I have to count myself. 2 more hopefully coming, Ed Gibson and John Lumber. I know Ed said he'd be a little bit late. Vicky, I know I've talked to her and it's just very hard for her to escape her work in Westfield to get online and do this. So we'll catch up with her at some other point. She's been following us in terms of the notes and things and the videos, but it's kind of challenged to be able to get out of work to join us in the meeting. So let us start with just looking at the meeting minutes from last time. I don't believe we have any comments from the public. I don't see anybody else hanging out here. So let me find my screen and share the minutes briefly. And once again, thanks to Judy Zonas for listening to the tape and trying to collapse the minutes in a digestible form here. So these are the minutes from January 27th. I had sent them out a few days ago. Hopefully people had a chance to take a look at them. Were there any thoughts or comments, assuming you had a look? That's the sum total of it basically there. We had the separate sheet about the 4 different quote unquote buckets of items that we had categorized here, and I'll share that to go with it as well. We'll file that as part of this as an amendment to the document here, rather than copying everything right into the notes. So we were really going to look at the enhanced revenue and cost savings buckets for our assignment for the first phase actions. And that's kind of our focus for today. So if everybody's okay with these, could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes
Okay.
from our January 27th meeting.
Okay. Did I hear a second there somewhere?
A second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No roll call. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we could do a roll call, I suppose, if we want to.
No,
Okay, now, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, let's do a roll call. Yeah.
Hey,
Aliza
Nye.
Pluta, aye. Oh, sorry.
Yep. Aliza, yep.
Ian
Aliza
Ellsworth,
Pluta,
aye.
Okay. Bob?
Yes.
Okay. Bradley?
Bradley, aye.
Okay. Chris Fowles, aye. Okay, thanks. We'll call these passed as stated. And these were the assignments that kind of go along with those minutes. So when I post the minutes, I will file this as well as a separate document so that anybody in the public can also look at it. And just for the couple of folks that might not have been here last time, we had tried to start out by looking at our first set of questions and dividing them up into something that we thought could be relatively quick to deal with, or we hoped it would be anyway, and felt that the first thing to start with as a level of importance was anything that might enhance our revenue, and then something that had potential for cost savings. There were a couple of other buckets, which I would just get down here. My screen will go with me, which were, hold on a minute. Come on now. What can help with cost control and what will improve efficiency? And on the cost control ones, I think we pretty much decided that this group is really more policy oriented. It's not so much a lot of investigation per se. I mean, I think it's something that it sounded like more that Ed Town Hall in general would develop some written policy around this. So I think that's one that can be an assignment as we leave the meeting today, perhaps. And then there were a couple of others on improving efficiency. And I know, Janet, you've maybe had some further detail on that, but we'll come back down to that. And then on the online permitting for the building department. And then the second one was the new financial software for the accountant and treasurer. And I think, Bradley, there was going to be some presentation to you and Janet Ed at some point in time by a vendor. Was that true or not?
I couldn't really understand what you were saying.
On the new financial software, potentially new software for the accountant and treasurer. I think I had heard that there was going to be a vendor or two invited in to talk to the finance team and Ed at Town Hall to talk about what software might be better than what we're currently using and less manual, I guess.
That's certainly possible. You would have to ask Ed. So I didn't
Okay,
hear.
I wasn't sure if that had been scheduled. I thought I had heard that was on the docket at some point, but okay. So anyway, for today, we're on these topics that we'll focus on enhanced revenue and potential cost savings. Now, let me ask you, I sent out a score sheet, and I'll just put that up. I was late. I'm sorry I did that, but it was something I was thinking about all week, and then took me forever to get it put together. And I was trying to figure out how we could apply the criteria kind of consistently across the board. So this was a thought of, jotting down some of the explanation of what was going into the current situation and the analysis, and then giving it a score of 1 to 5 from your point of view. And then maybe we'd come back as a group and figure out if we all agree with that scoring or something like that. Now, I know I sent this late, so I'm assuming nobody really got a chance to use this, and you made your own kind of paper to work from, and that's fine. I'll gladly, share whatever you have here. So did anybody try to use this or not?
No.
No. Okay, that's fine. And this is,
I didn't use it. It just didn't apply to what I looked into.
okay, that's fine. And it may not. Like I say, I was kind of scratching my head to see, okay, is there something here that we can work with, and it may not be applicable. So that's okay. We'll figure out something here. I was just trying to figure out a way to be a little bit consistent in our analysis. So that's okay.
I think that might be a good tool going forward, Chris, now that we've kind of all seen it together. I mean, I don't know what other people think. But
Yeah. Well, we can come back to it maybe at the end and just sort of see here. I'm going to allow people to share screen in case you want to have something here. Let me just change that security button. Okay, so I think maybe we can jump on the first one that we had, which is, I just canceled that now. Hold on. The first assignment one was anything about identifying property additions without permits, possibly property not being taxed. And I think between Janet and Bradley, you kind of dealt with this, or went to Bradley.
I did go to Bradley. I kind of jumped in because I was in his group, and I apologize for that. But being a former Board of Assessors person, I kind of forgot
Okay.
that wasn't my job anymore. So
Yep.
I think Bradley was going to look into I
Okay.
bowed out.
Okay, so that sounds fine. And just for Bob's sake, because you weren't here last time, I think the idea was to have some sort of a possibility of, I guess, Bradley, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of an aerial flyover the town on some level of a yearly basis, was it, to be able to more easily identify structures that had been put on? Could they be sheds? Could they be a new, I don't know what all qualifies, a new barn, or something that's out there that perhaps had not gotten a building permit? One of the queries was whether we're actually knowing all the additions that come forward. There are people that tend to build things that don't ask for building permits. So anyway, I think I won't go into it because I don't have any more detail on that. And I'll just turn it over to Bradley. If you have anything to share, you're welcome to do that.
I didn't exactly research that one because there was some confusion about if I should have. I really only looked into the personal property taxes and the central purchasing. Okay,
well, let's go ahead and talk about that one then, if you've got some thoughts about that one from talking to the assessors or whomever.
The assessors got back to me and said that they would try their best to reach out to more people and send out more taxes to more residents of Southampton. That was their response. So I can see the benefits and negatives. The benefits would be more money is earned by the town. Negatives is we might still miss some even if we tried again. Right. It's more work to track down and find these people and then keep reaching out to get them to pay.
Uh-huh.
And final negative, I would say, was upset Southampton residents that are now have to pay for taxes.
Well, but again, I think just to clarify, this was personal property tax. So this isn't our typical
Real estate. It's,
real
you know,
estate tax, right? So it would be basically focused on businesses, because we were understanding that there were some businesses that had not been given a personal property tax bill in a while.
Yep.
And therefore we're missing revenue. And so the question was, do the assessors keep a master list of businesses, registered businesses in town, or how do they know when there is a business in town, I guess? So I think we could go back to them and ask them to clarify that a bit more to us of, is there some sort of a list? How do we update it? How do we know? And Bob, question.
Well, just a question on that. Isn't a requirement of the town to do business in town that you would get a business certificate? And wouldn't it start there is to keep track of what businesses are in the town for personal property tax or a business?
That would be my thought. I guess I honestly do not know that. If there is, you've got to get, like when you build a house, you've got to get a certificate of occupancy and the building permit, and everybody and his brother signs off on that kind of thing. When you set up a business in town, certain businesses, at least any food establishments, you've got to go through the Board of Health and get a certificate. I guess I don't know for sure who's in charge of issuing a business permit. Does anybody know offhand? Ian, Janet, anybody?
I don't know.
So I guess that's where we're really maybe back at square one. So yes, that would make sense, Bob, and it may very well exist. I just don't know whose department it sits in.
Ed
Well, I
might
think-
know if he joins us, he may have
Yeah.
a sense.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would.
You slip through the cracks depending on what they are. So,
Right.
but anybody that actually has a physical presence usually files for a business certificate. I would think that's the basis of then sending out a form that they would fill out for what property they have in that business.
Hmm.
From there, as far as the assessment on it and then the annual billing.
Right. Yeah. Because, we do, alcohol and liquor licenses. We know all the food establishments, all of those we know pretty well. There are certain things that we know that we've got to get, from them on a regular basis, but there may be other businesses in town that we just, I don't know, we haven't kept track of. And maybe the personal property levels are not, the values are not all that great, but to
Well,
have
they're taxed at a high
have
rate
businesses.
in
Yeah.
Easthampton. They're taxed at a pretty high rate in Easthampton. So even just a small office will bring in taxes of, between $600 and $800. Which
Mhm.
station, and it adds up
Right.
quickly. So there's some money. And the other comment I had on that was the flyover on properties. Does anybody know or could find out how often Google Maps refreshes their aerial maps?
Mhm.
Because you can map the town
Yep.
just with Google Maps and see year over year, or
Yep.
even if it was 2 years or 3 years.
Yep.
Kind of, was there something that's popped up that wasn't there before?
Right.
And see if that's a taxed item.
Sure. That's a good idea, Bob, because I know I've looked at maps from time to time too, and you can see where a land has been cleared of trees or whatever else, where somebody's obviously building or something like that. But yeah.
The
So-
cost is free. I mean, it's already.
Yep.
So
Okay.
you don't have to pay for a flyover and have somebody
Yep.
document.
Okay. Good point. So Bradley, we're going to dump that one back on you. Okay. To check out, to get maybe more clarity in terms of what exactly was thought about from the assessor's point of view about that flyover and what that might cost or how frequent as well. But then why not something like Google Maps? And do they do anything with that? Would they want to? And then we need to figure out who manages any kind of doing business in town level of permit. And Ed should be here at some point during the meeting, so we'll come back around on that. Remind me to ask.
I mean, I would think somehow between the building and the assessors, the building department, because they have to issue the permits for the, so during a flyover, it's just determining then who has a building permit and who doesn't have a building. I mean, it's just, I don't know how it isn't become labor intensive to go by house or something.
Yeah.
Well, and you don't know when you fly over, actually what you're looking at, like
Mhm.
you're just seeing. And so how do you know if that's something that was permitted?
Right.
Unless you think it happens to look fresh based on your timing, but 6 months later, if the grass is growing around it, how would you don't know when you're flying over what you're looking at.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
You're,
Google Maps would give you something where you could do aerial sections of the town that are already there and just
Yep.
see year over year if anything's changed, and then map that to see if those maps reflect anything new, and then to see if those have been taxed. It'd be
Okay.
much easier.
Good point. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts about that? Ian, did you have any other thoughts on that?
no, it just seems like the assessor's office already has limited personnel. That seems like a lot of work, for reviewing 27 square miles of maps,
Mhm.
Yeah, it
There's
may
gotta
not
be
have
some
been
form of better, there's gotta be a more efficient
better
way to
way.
do it.
Mhm. Mhm. Agreed. Okay. All right. So let's assume we'll come back around on that one. I think there's some idea there, and the notion I think started because there was a perception, at least by a couple of folks who are involved with business, saying that they had not received a purple personal property tax in 2 or 3 years, and they weren't really
That's
complaining. They
different.
were just making a statement about it. So it's like, okay, well, why is that? So
Chris,
you
that's
know,
different than the, the flyover. Those are two
correct.
very different
Two
things.
separate things. Exactly. That is true. Yeah.
Janet,
So-
when you were at the assessor's office, what about Munimapper? Was that something that they used?
They use Munimapper, yes.
They do. And is
So
that a
like you said-
feature?
Pardon me? I don't know
Is
if
there a
it's,
feature for
I'd
that?
have to check that out, because that was more, Martha did most of that.
Mhm.
So, although the board is certainly more involved in the day-to-day stuff than they were when I was on the board.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to mention that personal property tax, if it's under $5,000, we do not tax them.
Okay. And that could be the situation that we've got, thanks for clarifying that. I was assuming there might be a limit, but I didn't know what there was. It's a floor basically. So it could be that some of these businesses, one of them that mentioned it just doesn't have that much in terms of property to be taxed, in terms of their internal equipment, et cetera. It's quite possible, I guess. So.
So we could check out the Munimapper. I don't know if it's that. I think it's whatever comes free. We
Yeah,
paying for any advanced stuff, but
yeah. I mean, I've used it before to look at properties, relative to my job. And it looks like there's a lot of layers, but obviously, with all the different layers that it has to, and filters, it looks like you might have to pay for it,
yeah,
Clearly.
that's,
Yeah,
I'm sure that was ever budgeted.
the $5,000 threshold, why is that?
I don't know if it's I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why that is. It's just if their personal property is under 5,000. I just wanted to clarify, because I thought there was a limit. I don't have an answer why, unless just encouraging small business, but I don't want to speculate. So
Okay.
we can try to get that answer though, because I knew
Yeah.
there was a limit, but I just reached out to one of the board members and just to clarify what it was before I used the wrong dollar amount. So
Mhm.
I just think that's such a low threshold, especially these days, but also the amount that if you open that door, it might let a lot of small dollars in. Again, they add up.
mhm.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
Can try to find out why. I have a feeling that's been a regulation that's been in place for a long time, but
Quite
that's
possible.
not an answer. Just because we always have isn't always a very good answer.
Yeah.
it's not
Well,
money.
Yeah. Well, we're good at that. That's the way we've always done it. So that's the way we keep doing it. And I think this is our chance to say, okay, well, that's been good for a while, but we're trying to look at things with, some fresh eyes and fresh ideas. So, I think, Bradley, if you want to take the lead on that, but if Janet can help you at all, just having her background with the assessors, but, if you would get together maybe with, some of the board members themselves between, Dave, I guess, Dave Arnold and, Dave
April
probably-
and Darcy.
yeah, and April and Darcy. I mean, the three of them probably are more, well, I mean, obviously Janine's there, but I mean, just,
Jeannie has.
but just in terms of, any of that, if you could try to research that a bit more and also see what we do, or if they do refer to anything like with Google Maps or Muni Mapper to figure out things like personal property tax.
And I'm gonna look at, I'm reaching out to find out if it's a Southampton regulation or a state regulation to get the answer for the 5,000, so.
Okay, all right. All right, well, let's keep moving on that one then. At least we've got a few thoughts there, but it just does seem like there might be some few dollars, and like Bob said, every dollar adds up eventually here. So, with more people moving into town, more people working from home, there may be more little, mini businesses, home businesses than we even realize. And again, whether that their inventory, if you will, meets the threshold, who knows? But
Well, even if it's office equipment, it counts.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
a desk and a computer and a chair, there's.
Yeah.
still
scanner, yeah, things like
I
that.
do think it's a state regulation, but they're gonna double check for me.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. All right, let's move on to the next one. We kind of covered the aerial flyover and the personal property taxes. Those were 2 out of the 4 in the enhanced revenue, and the other 2 were around the police detail and cruiser fees and ambulance fees, both, I guess. Ian, you want to tell us anything
Sure.
that you learned there?
I wish I could get better news for you, but so the police detail fee structure, that's based on that's dictated by Mass General Law, and the maximum through the law is 10%. We are currently charging 10%. So
Okay.
as far as the cruiser fees, that is not governed by Mass General Law. However, you have to justify. We wouldn't be able to say, hey, it's $100 for every cruiser for a detail, because it doesn't justify the cost. So by asking around with other police chiefs, our current rate seems to be reasonable. We have to justify that, for $15 an hour for that's what we charge, $15 an hour for a cruiser. And that's only right now, currently, when cruisers are needed or they're specifically requested. So not every detail gets a cruiser.
Okay.
So I don't feel that would be reasonable to increase that fee, with the exception of assigning a cruiser to every detail, because that could then increase the detail, the cruiser fees.
Yeah.
But that's something that we'd have to explore in the future.
And that would be $15 per cruiser per hour? Is
Per
that it?
hour of a detail, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And just to clarify, the details could be things like when they were repaving Glendale Road, you would have police there directing
Yes.
traffic, right? Or
Right. And it depends on the actual town. Like, for instance, some departments require a cruiser to be assigned to every detail. We do not. We only require it under certain conditions, or if the contractor actually requests one, versus every detail.
So you might have a policeman there, but not the cruiser itself.
Not a cruiser.
Per se. Yeah.
Correct.
You might have somebody staked out there all day long or in shifts, but not
Right.
not the vehicle.
Not a
itself.
cruiser.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes we have night jobs where obviously a cruiser is necessary then for the lights.
Sure.
We might have some bad intersections, or perhaps it's on Route 10 where we need some greater warning than just the signs. So we'll have a cruiser there. But we don't have, generally we don't have a cruiser assigned to every detail officer.
Yeah. Can you give us a couple of other examples of other detail type work, other than like I just threw out Glendale, but storm event?
It could be, when we worked with the tree companies, going through town through the tree mitigation, through the Eversource.
Yeah.
It could be for any road construction. It's essentially traffic safety for road construction.
Do we have a detail down at East Street Bridge now?
No, because it was blocked off.
Okay. All right. Okay. So.
And another thing within that Mass General Law, anything that is state or municipal funded, or which oftentimes is federally funded through the state, or federally funded, but offered through the state, you can't collect administrative fees for that.
Okay.
So for instance, any monies that's coming from the feds, the state, or municipalities, you can't collect administrative fees.
Okay. So we're kind of limited there, and it sounds like we're doing pretty much the maximum, except if we would decide to have a cruiser
cruiser
at
to
everything,
every
which
Right.
it seems a bit of an overkill, I would think. I mean,
Yep,
how many cruisers do you have to play around with?
That's the thing. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 details a day. We wouldn't have enough cruisers to do it.
Right.
So as far as, revenue generating, I don't think it's would be something that would be able to do or be that
Okay,
reasonable.
okay, valid to know. Okay. Anything on ambulance fees? Did you have a chance to talk to
I
John
did.
at all?
I did. I spoke with John. He just increased the ambulance fees 2 months ago.
Okay,
And yes, he does have discretion with ambulance fees. However, there's certain standards that he has to meet. The one being that the fees must justify the costs. And there's industry standards. So currently right now, he says that his fees, he believes, are to be as reasonable as he can make them.
and do you know what they are offhand?
I don't, he didn't have that information on hand. He did say that the fees vary depending on the level of service. For instance, advanced life support 1, different fee, advanced life support 2, different fee, and then just basic intervention has a different fee. So it all depends on the level of service that's required.
Okay, all right,
But his fees, as far as, again, greater revenue generating, he doesn't feel it's appropriate, or he has the means to increase the fees just yet.
right, okay, that's fair. Yep, Bob?
On the ambulance fees, isn't some of that dictated possibly by the insurance companies also at the end of the day? Or no? Like Blue Cross?
Not according to Chief Workman, no.
No, okay. Okay, they bill it and they get paid.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, maybe Ian, just as a follow-up, if we could just catch up with John and just understand what those 3 fees were,
Mhm.
and when he raised them and what they are now, just so we know
Yeah,
that.
he raised them 2 months ago, he said.
Okay, okay,
They're 2 months ago, so it's been a recent raise, I should say.
Yep, yep.
My point being, where when I asked him about how frequently he raised them, he does assessments with what other departments are doing, as well as the industry standards. So right now, he said that his fee schedule is appropriate according to industry standards.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, it'd be good just so that we understand what those changes are, so we know that.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yep.
And I guess one thing I know, when we're not able to answer an ambulance call ourselves for either short staffing or the ambulances elsewhere, oftentimes Easthampton comes in and intercepts for us, and we pay Easthampton. I guess I would just wonder if there are cases where we do the intercept for Easthampton or Montgomery or a neighboring.
Sure, there are times. So for instance, I think I know there might have even been one today, but I know there was one yesterday where Westfield needed mutual aid.
Okay,
So if our ambulance, and this is my understanding, and I don't want to speak out of school here, but my understanding is if our ambulance takes the entire service, we acquire all those fees. If, for instance, our ambulance responds and it's only at a basic intervention level, but yet they need advanced life support, and it comes from a mutual aid community such as Easthampton, that's where you get charged.
Mm,
But if Easthampton, my understanding is if Easthampton were to come to Southampton, and let's just say our ambulance we only have one ambulance on duty, right? And our ambulance was already at Cooley Dick, and there was another medical call, Easthampton would retain all the insurance from that.
yeah, okay,
Nothing goes to Southampton.
okay, got it. Okay, all right, so that seems like that door is a bit limited there too, in terms of anything new to do.
Right.
And I don't think we had any other ideas about other enhanced revenue. We only had those 3 or 4 topics listed on our strategy list here. We may come back around and find if there's more to look at.
These are they were looked at like our short-term pot,
They
not
were,
longer,
yeah.
right, but more
Correct.
short-term. So there probably
Yeah, no,
are,
we
but
were-
maybe not.
Yeah, that's right. We were trying to look at things that we could kind of grab onto and see if we could, make some headway on it with this current budget cycle that's coming up, because by early April at the select board level, we're going to be needing to have, looked at the budgets, and, everybody will have met with finance committee before that to go through their budgets. And then, we've got to get a balanced budget ready for town meeting in May. So, in order to fit that schedule, we were just trying to figure out, is there anything we can grab onto to say, hey, this would help a little bit. So that's okay. And in a way, as we came up with our list of things, we almost I kind of feel we almost pre-slotted things. We made some assumptions of things like this that might be cost savings, and in reality, maybe they aren't, you know. But as we look at the next grouping, which was what has potential cost savings, so that's kind of just the another way of saying enhancing revenue, right? I mean, we kind of we didn't box ourselves into a corner, but I think we went down a trail where we made some pre-assumptions here. So anyway, the first one on the list here was the idea of leasing or financing versus purchasing vehicles that would apply to police, highway, and the school in particular. And I don't know, Ian and Bob, if you had a chance to talk about that a little bit.
We did connect, and it was a good conversation. And Bob is an absolute great resource for this, so I'm going to defer to him. But one of the things that we recognized is, in general, and Bob probably could get more specific, is that the idea of leasing, and it's not really leasing, I guess it's financing, right?
Okay.
It's financing to own at the end.
Right.
And there's certain schedules. I think it's you can finance between 2 to 5 years, at least through the Ford Motor Credit Company, which we usually buy our cruisers from. And what financing will do, from my understanding of what Bob, and I'll let him elaborate, would be, it would allow us to free up capital. But that money to finance has to come from somewhere anyway. So it's going to have to come from the general budget, right?
True.
Where currently we're strapped. So where does that money come from the general budget if it's not going to come from somewhere else? If we don't, that's the pickle we're in right now. You follow me? So if we were to open up a line item for financing a car, whether it be a police car, whether it be the school van, well, that money, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, would have to come from the general budget, correct? Versus capital. So yes, if we had money in the general budget, it sounds like that would be a very good idea, because the financing is very little money.
Yeah.
And it would free up more capital. But do we right now have the money to finance? That's the pickle we're kind of in.
Yeah.
Is
So,
it possible
Bob,
to take-
Bob, am I explaining that right?
Yeah, I mean, so I spoke to Ford Motor Credit on Monday to kind of go over this program, and yeah, it's basically a lease to own program. So they don't want cars back that go to municipalities, because they know there's nothing left of them. So basically, it's to reduce your carrying costs. So not having to do a large capital expenditure. So they'll let you carry it for a term, like Ian said, 2 to 5 years. The interest rate, by the way, is higher than we thought. It's between 5% and 7%.
Wow.
It would be at a minimum 5%. She said it may be more. They look at the town, and then they decide. There's no reduction on that rate below 5% unless you finance over $200,000 in vehicles. And then from there, when it goes down again at 500,000, it goes down again at $1 million. And they said, so municipalities that buy a lot of product save a lot of money. This becomes a very worthwhile program. But as Ian explained to me the other day, there's a difference between a line item and a capital improvement, which baffles me. But I guess that's how towns work. It seems to me you could take a capital improvement and put that into the budget and spread it out, as opposed to expend it, to doing the expenditure at one time. But anyways, so at a minimum, it would be a 5% carrying cost to do this. So I don't know how that sits with everybody. But that's the advantage here. You could go 60 months and probably pay between 5% and 7% to spread the payments out. And I also learned from Ian that the cruises are about $60,000 to $65,000. Does that really help the town to spread that out?
Yeah. Okay. Janet, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I'm just curious, and this because I just don't have an answer and I don't have a clue, but stabilization fund. I mean, can you borrow annually from the stabilization fund to pay for a lease, but it doesn't come out of capital, or how is stabilization utilized? So it wouldn't be a new line item except we pull from stabilization. I just don't know if that's even a function of the stabilization fund. Because I know when
Yeah.
we get free cash, we break them up into those different buckets.
Right,
Some goes into capital, some goes into stabilization. So
yeah, there's
I don't know. if
limited,
you
yeah,
can-
limited percentages that you can apply to each of those, right? Yeah.
I don't know if you can borrow against stabilization. That leaves the big capital purchases. So I
Hmm,
just trying to think,
okay,
but I don't know. I don't know
Yep.
if that's feasible. I don't know if Bradley has a clue or not.
yeah, no.
Yeah, right,
Okay.
Bradley?
New to you too.
Curious, as far as budgeting goes, do the town's revenues increase a little bit each year in general? I mean, what is that? Is that number getting bigger every year? Why does it get bigger?
The revenue number goes up
The overall
2.5%.
revenue becomes-
2.5% is the revenue maximum we can increase revenue without a, right?
Mhm.
So our revenue can go up 2.5%, our cost can go up 4.
and does it
That's
go up
usually our challenge.
to-
I mean, that
Do you-
was, yep, go ahead, Aliza.
I was gonna ask if Bob has an estimate about how much is a payment on a lease for $65,000 cruiser, like you're paying monthly, like a car loan?
Yes,
Early.
exactly. I mean, it's glorified financing basically is all it is, and they're just putting it under, the term of the lease, but it's a dollar buyout at the end. So I mean, essentially you just finance your car at 5 to 7%.
Right,
So, some carrying costs there. But well, if you went on the high side, 6%, what, $4,200? Or 7% rather would be about $4,200 on 60,000.
Mhm.
So, it's gonna cost the town more money to use that program.
and when you say that for municipalities that are purchasing a lot of vehicles, say, how many is a lot, 10 or more, would you say?
Well, it's, just have to do the math. I mean, it could be like, I don't know the heaviest vehicle that Ford remarkets to upfit, but, I was thinking like, they don't do fire trucks, but maybe they do ambulances, they do the cutaway vans, they do police pickup trucks, but, if you went to a major city, it wouldn't be difficult to see them spend $500
Right.
million on that equipment and
Yeah.
get in a quotation, get a low interest rate on it, and not have to come up with $500,000 to $1 million at one time.
Right,
And Aliza, you were looking at some sort of a van, right, for the school, is that
to
right?
replace our preschool van, yeah. It's
So
over
this would be
10
like-
years old.
A 9-10 passenger or something?
Yep,
Mhm.
yep.
Yeah, okay.
And
Yeah.
that the, they don't care, it can be in a single, it doesn't matter, you can group all this into a single purchase as far as Ford motor credit is concerned. So it could be a van combined with something else.
Yeah.
So before, just, on a side, just to educate you, before the pandemic hit, we had money in our preschool revolving account. So when parents pay for preschool, not all parents have to pay for preschool, because if students qualify for an IEP and they come here for early intervention, those kiddos, they don't pay, right? But the parents of the typical child pays. If you want your child to come to preschool, but they're not getting intervention, then we charge you for tuition. And you have to have one more typical child than you do a special ed student. So if you have 8 special ed students, you have to have 9 typical children. So of those students that are paying, our number decreased drastically during the pandemic because many parents didn't want their children to come to in-person learning in preschool with, being so little and the pandemic and everything and being unsafe. So we don't have the funds that we used to have that we wanted to use to lease a vehicle. So we'll be looking at that again if we can increase our numbers in preschool like they were before.
Yeah,
You think-
yeah,
Because we had to keep them 6 feet apart too, so you could only have so many kiddos.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah,
That's something down the road though that might come back, right? I mean.
absolutely, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Ed has joined in. So Ed, we were just talking, Bob and Ian, we were talking about the idea of this sort of lease to purchase for vehicles versus an outright purchase, like we've been doing, and seems to be kind of a 5 to 7% interest rate on those that they were finding, and not quite clear whether that's anything beneficial to have to finance it that way out of the general fund versus just going outright from capital like we currently do?
Most of I mean, we haven't really been buying much outright. I wish we were doing more than that. Even the cruisers lately, we've actually had to borrow for, which I don't like doing. But
Okay.
I mean, we're getting a rate on those. It's like on the borrowings that's between 2.5% and 4%. So that's better than the leasing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So some of the ones though, are we not putting some of the like the highway or any of those are not coming out of capital funds? Or
Well, it might be being approved through capital, but I can't remember. Well, I won't say that. The $40,000 highway truck we did appropriate straight out, but everything other than that, the admin vehicle for the fire chief, the bigger highway trucks, I think even
that water van,
the
the water truck?
well, that came out of their own retained earnings account. So
Okay.
but again, yeah. So
Yes. So all
Yeah.
of these essentially, even though they're approved at capital, they come back to bite us anyway in the budget because of the financing. So they're back as a cost within the general budget anyway. We're not the capital fund, we were talking about the money that goes from free cash into capital and stabilization. But nonetheless, it all comes back around in the central budget.
right, exactly. I mean, the one advantage that I could see, even though it might be a little higher rate to leasing, would be, and I'm just using this for an example. The years could be wrong or whatever. Say we decided to, lease all of our police vehicles, and you got them onto a schedule and lease them, and it's and just for an example, say it's I'm going to say a 4-year lease. Once you've got that into the operating fund for the police department rather than debt or someplace else, theoretically you could say, okay, even if it's not a lease to purchase, when that lease is done in 4 years, which we're now going to have 120,000 miles on that police cruiser, guess what? We're going to return it. It's probably going to have a few $1,000s left of value in it, and we'll trade it in on another one we're going to lease for 4 years. So you finally built the money into your operating budget. You're not fighting and fighting to get the money to replace them or putting them off so that they're getting dilapidated and not working. So you've got a regular schedule.
That's what Ian and I had discussed, of maybe coming up with as a budget item, that this is how much the town puts aside each year to pay the payments on these cruisers. Now, this is a lease purchase or dollar buyouts to Ford Motor Credit. So you own the car at the end for $1, and if it's got some trade-in value, yes, you could lower the price of the new cruiser by whatever. They're not going to be worth a lot. I'd be interested, if we got further into this, we'd find out how much that particular company that's authorized to sell the Ford product, at least in Massachusetts, how much they'd actually give you for the trade-ins, which would be interesting too.
Yep.
There's a few things to explore there, that there might be some savings for the town, or at least I would be happy to help on that as far as dealing with that agency. And also discuss that maybe there's other products out there that Massachusetts has authorized purchases through, for whether it's Chevys or whatever, different products. We could do some price shopping as well.
Right.
Is there any kind of a program? Ian said that oftentimes a lot of their police vehicles are Fords, but like in the highway department, where we obviously have larger vehicles and heavy costs on those vehicles, have we kind of gravitated toward one particular brand or another, or are they
Yes.
a mixture?
Yeah, we have, because I will say that probably over the last, oh God, I've been out of Beckett for 4 years now. So probably over the last 6 to 7 years. There are some of those big vehicles, as far as manufacturers go, that have certain issues with them that we probably still want to stay away from.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the company that we tend to go with? Well, for most of them, are they?
For cruisers, Ford.
Yeah, Ford
What's
for
that?
cruisers. Okay.
Yeah, I think Freightliner is probably about the most popular out there that they've been using here, and they had gone to in Beckett.
Freightliner. Okay. All right. So maybe there's something more to look at there. And I guess to help you guys, I'm thinking to understand what we have currently financed for vehicles, which is on our budget, and how much we spend for, you know, the financing and, you know, the interest costs, et cetera, on the loans that we're paying out right now on highway and police vehicles, for example, which, you know, I think Bradley could pull that information for you guys to at least have a starting point, right, to look at. Would that help?
For me, I just, and Ed, maybe you can answer this because just get a better understanding. So if this were to be in operating costs, correct? It's going to have to come out of the general fund, right?
Well, technically, even if we borrowed for one of those cruisers right now, that's coming out of the general fund.
It is. I guess my only thing is if we're in somewhat of we have some already budget issues or, you know, fiscal issues. How does that make it? How does that make it possible if we don't have enough money currently through for regular services, or to even maintain services without getting without getting cuts? My point being is, in the last 2 years, my budget's been cut significantly. How would that work, or how would that affect, you know, my single budget? If, for instance,
well, the theory is, if you can do it, you get them out of, whether it's a capital appropriation or whatever, you build them into the budget. And then once they're in the budget, you just keep recycling them. The big step is getting them into the budget.
Yeah. Okay.
How does that happen?
Bob, could you say
How
again?
does that happen?
How does it happen?
Yeah. To get it built into the budget.
That's just trying to be, shall we say, prudent, and try to, and it takes little steps, but trying to put funds into places that existingly need money. And I'm probably going to put my foot in my mouth and get fired for this, but you know, consistently we keep looking at new things to do and new things to spend money on. Well, guess what? We've got, shall we say, an unstructurally balanced budget. So we need to internally go back and take a look at the departments we have and say, what are those services, and how are they needed to be funded, and bite the bullet and say, okay, well, we're not going to add this and this particular year. We're going to go back in and fix the inequities we already have.
Because it seems that the police cruisers are a no-brainer, that the department needs to have reliable cruisers, and there should be some kind of regular trade cycle to them.
Well,
it's not not random.
Well, it's not random, but, and I know you're joining us and you don't have a deep dive into our municipal budget, but I can also say, well, we've got police officers that need to have ballistic vests swapped out every 5 years, and we have trouble, doing that. So
I get it. Something that Ian touched on also in our meeting was possibly getting this is a little off subject, but getting the police certified, and that might equate to some savings for the town in some manner, or maybe it's some advantage to the town. And it doesn't sound like a lot of money to get that done. And I asked if that could be a private donation, or does that really have to come to the town? But if there was some benefit to the police department being certified, I would be happy to take that on and fundraise to make that happen.
Mhm.
That's not like a large amount of money.
Could we explain that a little bit better, what that means, Ian, certified?
Sure. What he's referring to is police accreditation and certification. So our conversation just Friday digressed and we went into other
Mhm.
ways of with the police department and spoke about the budget and that there's perhaps cost savings through insurance through MIIA if our department was accredited.
Mm.
Because it's a structured policies and procedures that if we're certain to have them, it reduces liability.
Right.
Okay.
But you have to be accredited. We have them, but we have to be accredited.
Okay.
You know, they might not be. There's certain things that are there's more than just. It's more than that, but it's a state sanctioned service where it's for our department. I think it's about $1,500 a year. I brought it up. I try to get it in my budget every year. I just have to cut it because of I can't pay for it because of the cuts that I've had. But anyway, it's just standardized policing.
Mhm.
If you where a outside agency comes in and inspects your department every 2 years.
Okay. So the cost comparison though would be the $1,500, if that's what I'm understanding, as an annual fee, right? Versus.
I don't know how much the savings would be through
Right.
insurance. I'm not sure.
That would be
And-
part of the
and I-
analysis.
And I
Right.
can find that out. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would be part of this analysis that we're trying to do is like, okay, if this is what it costs, is it worth forking out $1,500 to save, $2,500 if that's the case? I mean, that's where we want to, in order to present any of our findings to FinCom and Select Board, we're going to have to come down with some numbers like that. So
Mhm.
to the extent we can get those figures, that would be helpful. So yeah,
Well,
let's
Mike-
assume we can do some more digging on that a little bit anyway.
All right, and I think that this conversation would lead into this anyway, and I know we actually was brought up in the department head meeting today, and Ed and I have discussed, as well as some other department heads, as possible trainings through Cabot Risk or MIIA that might also reduce
Mhm.
insurance. And Ed would be able to speak more to that than I would, but
Okay.
something that Ed was going to bring up anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And yeah, I mean, and a similar thing along the lines of the school is like, Aliza, if they could add another van to transport students and whatever, okay. If the useful life of that van is 10 years and you put in all the maintenance costs and the gas or diesel costs on it and compare to that of, what the average cost for 10 years of having an outside vendor do it, okay, is there a cost savings there? And then you get you go move forward and get the van and hire the additional employees to,
Mhm.
to drive it type of thing. So, yeah.
And I'm just guessing, but I'll bet you that it's cheaper to have your own van than to be, subbing that out to somebody else.
Mhm.
You're profit and you're paying all the real costs when you sub it.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Well, these are exactly the kinds of issues that we want to explore in a bit more depth. I think we're raising the right questions. And we need more time to kind of get into the math of all of this and figure out, what it is we're incurring right now for expenses and what would be the rationale to do something different than what we are doing now and what would be any kind of cost savings. So
Have a
I
good
think
week,
that's,
Jerry.
yep. I think that would be a way going forward anyway. So, okay. All right, well, let's keep on moving on some of the topics here. Ed, I don't know if you had a chance to do anything with the office equipment leasing and the centralized maintenance contract idea.
Not on the centralized maintenance. I did follow up a little bit with the like the street light swapping out, and if swapping out the LEDs, you can have as much as 50% savings on your electrical costs. The one piece I have to follow up and look into is what would be the cost of maintaining those street lights, because once we move away from Eversource, I mean, basically if we have a burned out street light now, or the head breaks or whatever, you know, they replace it. We don't pay anything for that. It's all in the cost we pay for the electrical service to them. Once we move away from that, we would have to engage someone, could be, you know, Holyoke Gas and Electric, could be South Hadley Electric, to maintain them. So I'll have to find out what like an average cost per year for the number of streetlights we have is from them to plug that in and say, okay, are we still ahead of the game, or, you know, are we now at a break even point, or what have you?
Okay, so in other words, if I understand, if we went to LEDs, we would not keep Eversource as our vendor then?
No, that's why we have to, and I don't understand this one. So that's why we have to buy the lights out from Eversource, because they won't put in LEDs. And I you know, I don't get that. But you know, that's the case, is once you make the decision to go to, you know, change over to LEDs, you end up buying all your streetlights out from them, and you get another party to maintain those.
Strange.
Yes.
Okay.
Like I say,
All right.
it's one of the things I have never figured out in probably the last 12 years or so since this has gotten popular.
Yeah, okay. Well, again, I mean, there's some thoughts there, and we just need some real costs to be able to understand what the difference would mean. And I guess the other thing would be, by going to LEDs, does that have any effect on our famous ag grid cow power bill, et cetera, where we're getting credits from?
Well, you're going to get smaller credits. That's all, because
Smaller
you're not
credits.
using as much, you know, electricity, but you're still going to get credits.
You're still going to get credits. Okay, so that wouldn't change.
No, that would not change.
Okay.
Excuse me, Ed, who pays for the lights on Route 10? Does the state or does Southampton?
State pays for the ones on Route 10. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check that, but I'm pretty sure they do.
Okay. All right.
ask a
Ed,
question?
yeah, go ahead, Lisa. Yeah.
Did we already pay or use the money for the green energy grant? Is that still around?
It's still available.
And that's not going to be used for streetlights at all?
It may be. That would be one of the pieces that would be eligible to buy out the streetlights, which the last cost we got, which was a couple of years ago, was $39,000.
And how much is that grant for? I don't remember, sorry.
138.
So is it over if we don't, if you don't do anything with it by next year? Is it 2023?
Yeah, no, it continues. We don't lose it.
Oh, all right.
And actually, I've got a program that I used in the past that might be beneficial to Norris School, and I got to dig out some information on it for upgrading all your heating and ventilation.
Say the word pneumatic. Say pneumatic, and that'll make me so happy.
Well, this is comprehensive. It not only goes from controls, but looks at all your existing unit ventilators or unit heaters or whatever you got in there. It would actually relook at your boilers and everything else. So,
And Ed, just on the grant, for those that don't know, that we have to show is it a 20% cost savings in our electricity? Is that it? Or
we have to show a 20% drop in our electric utilization over a 5-year period.
Okay.
I mean, you can do it. Yeah, I mean, if you did enough projects, you can do it in year one. But that being said, they'll take a 5-year period of your progress to get to that 20%.
Yeah. And do we have a sense about what percent we might be at now at all?
No, because COVID came in, so the Norris School had to run all their systems for like 24/7 right after we did that lighting swap in there. So we haven't really gotten a good read. But yeah, with Norris being our #1 energy utilizer, I'm gonna guess that just doing that was a good, I'll bet you it was at least 5% towards the 20, if not more.
Okay, all right, good. Janet, question?
Yeah, am I muted? No,
No.
I'm just curious if I know it's a little off topic, but we're talking about energy and where do we stand with solar and either putting solar in the schools or solar in town hall? I mean, green energy, I'm just curious if we're looking, I know it's not on our immediate cost savings, but I'm just,
Well, I'll just say before, I don't know if Ed was about to respond, but when we had to fix our boilers and we were looking at $40,000 to not even replace the boiler, but just to fix the ones that we had and kind of take the guts out of it and put new guts in or whatever, without replacing it completely. We looked at what we could do to be more green efficient with our boilers, and it was going to be over $100,000, which of course we didn't have any options at that time. So we went with the 40,000 and just revamped what we had. So I don't know if there's anything else out there now with this grant or more grants. It sounds like.
what does that have to do with solar? Maybe I might be missing the
Oh, I
point.
thought you said green energy.
Well, no, I was talking about solar and.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant both. I thought you were talking about both. Sorry.
Mm.
Nothing
conjunction
solar
with-
going on here right now.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
I mean,
And-
isn't that a good way to look at cost savings at town and at the
Mhm.
school?
yeah, I don't know, we haven't really explored it as far as I know, at least since I've been around. Have we, Ed, in terms of any solar installation for town hall or the municipal buildings around the center of town?
And I mean, my own professional opinion is that we're better off aggregating to an outside solar farm rather than putting up our own stuff, but that's my opinion.
Either way, I guess, are we?
Yeah. We haven't
we're
been
not-
approached by anybody, you know, we've got there's a group down on Route 10 there heading toward Westfield now.
Usually what'll happen is when they open up or are getting ready to open up, they will sell off their, they'll reach out and sell off their power. I can look there are ones that are always opening up, and it doesn't have to be, you know, actually right in your community or what have you. That electricity travels on the lines just like
Yeah.
regular electricity does. So I can reach out to some companies and see what they've got for rates to buy into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
put that on our list, Chris, at least just to explore.
Yep. Okay, sure. Yeah, because I think certainly that big group of solar panels on the way to Westfield is, you know, very obvious right there. They must be selling to somebody. So besides the city of Westfield, perhaps, I don't know, but okay. All right, a couple others here. How about Janet? I know you didn't have a particular assignment, but you have some information that you can work on next time from Ron. Is that right?
Yeah, can I just share a couple
Yeah.
of quick things and then we'll, so Ron's looking for, this is called Muni City and it's about, I guess, and I don't know a lot about it. He mentioned, I think at the select board meeting, I think this is it,
He did, yeah.
where it's the departments that are affected and then they could utilize it and, you know, all the things that can be, the way Ron described it, instead of taking a piece of paper around and having our taxpayers go from one office to the next office, to the next office, to the next office to get sign-offs. It would just automate the process. So it just make it more efficient. That was one. And let me just look at the one he sent me
Yeah.
just quickly.
Because-
Can give me- go
And I
ahead.
think part of this started because the building department has the online permitting now. But when he came to select board the other night, he was talking about other software that would be even more efficient, I guess, in that it would connect more departments, so that everybody would be in the know at the same time. You know, what's been approved, or if anything's being stalled or held by one department or another for some lack of information or whatever, so.
And this is
Okay.
another one he shared with me via email link called local governments. It's called OpenGov. I think he said that Amherst is using it. And it talks about state of the art. I mean, you know, I think as a community, we've been using the same budgeting Excel spreadsheets for as long as and not that I've been around that long, but for a long time. So
Uh-huh.
just state of budgeting. It talks again into permitting for the building department, just a lot of just automation, just bringing Southampton kind of into the 21st century as far as cloud-based sharing of
Yeah.
documents. And so I don't have a lot of information,
Yeah.
detail
Okay.
about it, but those were kind of a couple of the areas that he shared
Okay.
with everybody.
So maybe that'll be something that you can look at a little bit more. That one was kind of the one I think we had down in the, partly what will improve efficiency. I think that was that bucket, a little bit farther down the list from today. But while you're here, I just wanted to make that visible so that we can also focus on that, because that may also have some cost savings, but certainly from an efficiency point of view, it might be, a better service delivery mechanism perhaps, but.
And I apologize, but I do have to leave in like 7 minutes, so.
Yep. No, I know you've got another thing going on.
And Bob had his hand up. I thought Bob wanted
Yep.
to.
Go ahead, Bob. Yep.
If some admin personnel that would help relieve their workload as well. So maybe a couple of positions might be able to be combined.
Mm-hmm.
Software was all that purposeful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it just eliminates a lot of errors that could occur when you have people touching so many times the same piece of paper. It just increases
Mm-hmm.
chance of errors. I certainly, we run a pretty thin ship, I think, in town hall right now, but so I'm not necessarily advocating for combining jobs or anything like that, but just bringing efficiency to the residents more than anything.
Yep. Okay. Thanks for that. All right. I think there were two others on our list. Central purchasing of supplies like paper and toner. Bradley, did you have a chance to look at that any?
Yeah, I just got some benefits and negatives for central purchasing.
Mm-hmm.
So with central purchasing, we can see savings opportunities. We can better monitor how money is spent. We can reduce duplicate or unnecessary orders. There's sometimes bulk purchasing benefits. So when you buy in bulk, there might be discounts, lower shipping rates, whatever. We would have fewer vendors to deal with. There'd be less work for all the departments. Like if each one was buying toner, we would just have one person, one department ordering it. So reduce a little bit of work from everybody. There would be a central contact for all the vendors. They would know who to call, the central purchaser. And like we could reduce having to deal with scam callers, I've dealt with scam callers before where they sent us toner and we already had a subscription in place. And in the accounting department, we have to reach out for W-9 tax forms before we pay for anything. So if we have a list of vendors, we would have less instances where we have to reach out and get W-9s for them.
Mm-hmm.
For negatives, there's only a few, and it's only like slow processing delivery for certain departments if they really need toner, but central purchaser is waiting a month to order everything. And some vendors could lose business from us if we're constantly been paying them for 10 years and then we stop, and then we'd miss out on local discounts for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Yep. Ed, some thoughts?
One other thing I'll bring up with central purchasing or bulk purchasing is then will have an added cost unless you have storage space available. You would have to create it and do that, but that's probably what, that's one of the cons, but that's a small con.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we were thinking the last time we met was just that, the various departments are ordering their own supplies, wherever, from WB Mason or Staples or Amazon or whatever's convenient at the time, and whoever's got it quickly. But if there were a more systematic way to do that was kind of across board, saying, look, we're gonna, every department, what are your usage trends or whatever you want to call them on a quarterly basis? How many reams of paper do you tend to go through or how many toner cartridges or whatever, and then try to do like a, maybe a quarterly order or something like that that would cover, across departments or something like that. Is that something worth exploring a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you get bulk rates, though. I mean, if you don't get bulk rates, is it really worth it?
Well, let me throw this out to you on a simplified basis. I mean, a simplified way to get there, and yeah, bulk rates are going to be beneficial. But just say we went out and picked 12 key items and then compared pricing from W. Mason to Staples to maybe somebody else that's on the state contract. And you maybe did this once a year. And then you sent out a letter to all the department heads and say, here is where you're ordering your office supplies from. Boom.
Yes,
It's
that's
done. It's automatic. And you know what happens then? Is it saves the time from that individual going from vendor to vendor to vendor trying to find the cheapest price, which is now costing an hourly rate.
Yep.
And it's done and it's simplified. So it's
that's
enough
that vendor list. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Like an approved vendor list that I spoke of last meeting. I think that's important to have.
Yep.
It's going to take work though to figure out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what would be the kind of questions you'd want to have answered to develop that approved vendor list?
You would
Who has the
say
cheapest product?
right. You would basically say to your department heads of, okay, send me back a list, and you might say send it in Excel so it's easily editable. The 20 most popular office products ranked from 1 to 20 that you ordered in the last year or two.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you just take a look at that, you compare it, you come up with your 12 or 15 most popular items and go from there.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. What do you think, Bradley? You want to tackle that?
Yeah. I have created a file for fiscal year 2021 that pulls all the vendor history. So
Okay.
I can see how much we paid Amazon by the general ledger account or department and see how much we've been spending.
Okay. No, that's good. That sounds like a good start as well. Okay. All right. Great. And then one last one, I think today was more, Elise, and I don't know if you had a chance to talk to John at all about this, but there was talked about a shared maintenance plan for the school with other departments in town hall. And that was related to HVAC and boilers and plumbing in particular, I think, if I remember our discussion last week.
Right. No, what I did was pulled what we pay and what we get and how much, what our contract includes.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to get with John, but I
Yeah.
don't know if John got the information from Ed either.
Yeah.
So Ed, what's the best way to get that information from, do you have the information for the fire department, the police department and the town hall, or is it each separate?
For what?
For HVAC, let's start with HVAC costs and who you use as a vendor.
Actually, I think Ian and I use the same vendor, which is B&G.
Okay, so do we.
Yeah. Highway uses a different one. Library uses a different one. After that, probably wouldn't be as simple as having Bradley run the numbers, because you're going to have to be able to identify the particular HVAC vendors in your building expense account and pull those out. So let me work with Bradley. The preliminary may be that I show Bradley the parameters to run for the last couple of years and export that to Excel, and then send that to like Ian and John and Randall and Barbara and say, okay, here it is in Excel. Now eliminate the vendors and the expenses that don't have to do with HVAC. And then, I can do that for 2 years or 3 years, but, whatever you'd like, and then we'll have a history.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I do have a list of people that we use. I don't know if we should cross-reference that, So the one thing, obviously, it seems to be that most of us are using BG Mechanical. I don't know anything about this stuff, but would it be possible that if we did one contract with BG for the police, the fire, and the town hall and my school, or whoever said it was BG, would they do a contract? Would it be cheaper in the end if it was one contract for the 3 places rather than 3 separate contracts? I mean, mine alone is 9,000 something, $9,104. And it includes, I have every detail of what that includes, right? They're coming in, they're fixing the unit vents, not fixing them, but checking them, oiling them, and making sure they function a couple times a year. And then we have a separate contract because of COVID to change the MERV 13 filters. So that's not included in the regular contract. That's an addition to it. I don't know if you're all doing that or not, but would he give us a deal if there were, I don't know if it even makes sense as a businessman to do that.
uh-huh,
It may, and I'm glad you identified the fact that your filter changing was separate, because I was going to tell you that you're getting one heck of a deal at $9,100, because
Yeah.
we're paying $6,400 here, but our quarterly service and maintenance includes those filters being replaced. They're not the MERVs, but it's in that 6,400. But it's possible. They may be willing to. We might get to faster response times. It's possible that they start looking at it of saying, well, geez, okay, all of a sudden we've got 3 or 4 buildings in Southampton. Maybe that's efficient for them, because they say, whether it's in 1 day or 2 days, is okay, we're sending that person,
Right.
in that direction, and they're going to do, all of those quarterly maintenances, whether it's in 1 day or 2 days or whatever.
Yeah. It seems like it would be more efficient if nothing else. I mean,
Right.
all the way around, but.
Do other departments besides the town hall and the school have contracts? Because I know we don't. When it breaks, they fix it,
Right, but
the other buildings that are small might not have contracts.
the library does. So, and it may be something more beneficial where you may not currently, but maybe it makes sense to be included in that contract or have a contract.
Yeah, maybe there's a service that you're not getting, Ian, that you could benefit from.
No.
On a contract. I mean, maybe.
Well, that's
So-
like us for plumbing. We don't have regular plumbing maintenance, anything. We just call them every time. And then it's $1 million because the sinks are continuously, it must be like the year they put in all the sinks. So now one by one, we're having to fix the sinks where it's a push down and it doesn't come back up automatically. It gets stuck down and the water's running and nobody knows. So, Ed, so, what can I do to be better prepared for the next meeting for some of this stuff? I'm kind of lost as to what to bring to the meeting.
I'm at a loss just listening to the amount of these contracts.
Yeah, I would just say, if it's possible for somebody to cull your vendor list and payments over the last 2 or 3 years, just to see how many different vendors you're using for maybe the same thing. Or and if it is just one vendor, of how much you're spending with that vendor.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me share this little score sheet again, just to see if this is at all useful. And I don't know if it is. I mean, like I say, Ed, I mentioned that I had just developed this kind of at the nth hour here, but I was trying to get us to have some level of analysis that would be similar. But I know, come on here. What Ian was saying is what he had looked into. It didn't really apply to his.
That was only because there was no cost savings. I thought it was a great form. Don't get me wrong. I didn't want to, it was simply because I felt like I failed you, Chris. We came back with nothing good for you.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. That was on the cruiser fee things there.
That's why it wasn't applicable. That's why.
Yeah,
That's
right.
why I
So,
get those.
so that didn't there. And yeah, so some of those couple things, we thought we had some enhanced revenue in a couple areas and it doesn't look like we do, but maybe some of this could be still useful. So I don't know if this would help at all, Eliza, to do this in terms of public access wouldn't apply to, so they won't all apply to everybody, but the feasibility to implement whatever we're trying to do, the positives and negatives, I would think would be there. But the cost savings on what you were talking about, Eliza, I think this is just giving me a problem here. Come on up here.
Interject
come back.
something on
Yes, go ahead.
on these maintenance contracts, those are the 9,000, the 6,000, whatever. I mean, do those get shopped once in a while?
Do they get what?
Do they get
Shop
shopped around? And
We
what-
shop around. We have shopped around. We didn't always use BG. We used another company before that.
I just think it's something that should be happening on a regular basis.
Mhm.
Maybe every 24 months at the longest, that those contracts go out
Mhm.
for people to bid on, or
Yeah. Well, they're a short list, right? They're on a state contract list, Ed.
Yeah.
They've been
Yeah.
pre-vetted.
And it's, you know,
And the other thing with these companies is you will find companies that are better and more responsive to others. And I will be the first one to say that, okay, if you've got a company that you're happy with, is responsive, and does a good job and doesn't rip you off, it's not worth the effort to save $500 by moving to another one.
Mhm.
I'm not looking at it that petty either. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know relationships are important, but I'm just wondering if.
Yeah.
you know,
so there's, let me just, to put it a little bit into perspective. You know, we have 27 classrooms plus the office, the nurse's office, the counseling office and all this. And they do preventative maintenance, they test and inspect. You know, they clean the condenser coils, they align the belts, they calibrate, they tighten, they adjust, they lubricate, they check. And then the MERV 13 filters are the most expensive, which is in addition to this, like I said.
Mm.
Yeah.
But if we feel like this company is super responsive, and we found that another company that we're going to, that some of the other schools in the Hampshire Regional School District use, were charging us for things that we felt like should have been in the contract already. Like some of this preventative stuff, we're not getting charged for now because it's part of the contract.
Mhm.
Or we were getting charged before. So
Yeah.
it's like, you know, trying to save a little bit, but get, you know, what we need at the same time, obviously. And maybe we look out for another one next time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that particular, shall we say, we'll just say in this particular venue, the big three in this area for that is BG, Belanger, and TJ Conway.
Okay, well,
Mhm.
I just think there's nothing wrong with keeping everybody honest. And-
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
And you do have to watch them. That's the other thing. And what are they billing for you for? How long are they here to do a job and whatever? And every once in a while you'll catch them and say, you know what, I don't think I'm getting what I'm paying for or whatever. And yeah, that's when you start looking for, okay, well, let's go put this out to bid or even bring somebody else in and see how they can do it.
Right.
That's happened to us not with the vendors you're speaking of, but they'll bring their apprentices in, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
paying their license, and then they're paying for their apprentices. So
Right.
Yeah.
It's even more of a cost.
Yeah. And I think, the whole notion of being able to have something as a preventive, action rather than having to wait till something falls apart and then you've got to hurry up and find somebody, and you're often at the mercy, right, of whoever can come at that given time to solve your emergency. So, I mean, the notion of having some kind of a contract and doing preventive maintenance as you go along should bear out in the long run on most situations, I would think.
Right.
So,
I'm just saying, that this is a cost efficiencies committee.
yeah, well, exactly.
The idea of this is to not spend more than we need to
Correct. Yeah.
and balance that with quality service. I know.
Yeah. So I think that, these are all things that I think we should explore a little bit little bit more in depth to the extent we can. And, I don't know if that form will help you at all, but I was just trying to figure out ways. I think, everybody would have to go back to Bradley and or Ed to grab some figures of costs, current costs, to figure out what they're doing, and then make some phone calls to whomever to figure out what the possible options are. And you're not, you're just inquiring, you're not speaking on behalf of the town when you're calling up, BG or somebody else to say, what if, but I mean, at least to get an idea whether there was any level of interest in that. I think people could do that. Ed, would that be okay for the committee people to do that?
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well,
We
I
had
don't
one
think
other, go ahead, Bob, sorry.
You have to
Yep,
apologize to anybody that there's shortfalls on revenue in every town right now. Everybody's struggling into ask
Right.
about any consideration, or would they reconsider their maintenance costs, and
Mhm.
you get a few numbers because we only have X amount of dollars to go around. I mean,
right,
that is what it is.
Yep.
And I sat down with Ian, and he really educated me that just, the police department could use a lot of things too. And there's no all these things. So
Yep.
it's a frustrating conversation.
yeah, no, definitely. Ed, we had one big question before you came on, and we'll kind of total up the meeting with that. We had talked about the whole issue that we mentioned last week about personal property taxes maybe not being fully collected, and wondered if whether the assessor's office may have a sort of a master list of businesses in town. But then Bob raised a question, which I don't think I could answer. How does a business register? Who do they register with to do business in town?
Town clerk.
Is it just the town clerk? Okay.
Yeah.
And is there a fee to be paid to do business?
Yeah, you would pay for your business certificate.
Okay. All right. So maybe that's a question then, Bradley, if you were going to look at that one a little further, is to get in with Lucy and just see what is her list of businesses in town, if she could print that out for you. And then, maybe a compare and contrast with the assessor's office to see if they've got the similar list in terms of where their personal property tax bills are going. Are they in sync, or are they missing some, or that would be a first step perhaps.
And also, Ed, we talked about before you came to the meeting that there's a $5,000 threshold that no one gets taxed
For personal property tax, is that right?
unless it's over $5,000. And I was just wondering, is that
I'm trying to remember if it's 5 or 10.
Is that a town thing? Or
No, that's a state.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I think we still need to keep within this general circle of topics or strategies that we've come up with, because these were all the ones that we thought were probably short term and kind of that low hanging fruit to try and see if we can do something. There were a couple others that John had in terms of, I think, consolidating IT support services and a couple of others that we'll find out maybe more next time. But my sense is we just need to dig deeper on all of these that we've started talking about today. I mean, we've got some good discussion out here, but we need to put some figures to it, and then, really trying to do a little bit of analysis at your various group levels to see, okay, what makes sense here. I mean, as Ian started out with the cruiser fees, et cetera, there, that we're not going to have any real cost savings here. We're already there. Or John, with the ambulance fees, we've already raised them. I mean, there's no more enhanced revenue we can get out of that right now. If everybody's agreeable, I think I would just suggest that we just dig deeper into these same things for the next meeting. And if you find that form useful, use it. If not, develop something yourself that makes sense to you. That's fine. We had set tentatively last time, and if everybody's okay with it, we had said, I believe it was March 10th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look at my calendar.
It was, yes, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
March 10th for our next meeting, so that we could try to get this in. And if we had to squeeze in one more before all the budget hearings were done, but we were hoping that we'd have maybe 3 or 4 things that we could suggest to the finance committee and or select board in terms of here's where we see things going. I think that would be great. Yep.
Bob, is that time going to work for you? You had brought up that that's a difficult time for you for these meetings.
Well, Thursday's just kind of a rough day for me. I mean, Wednesday's an easier day.
Okay. All right. What does anybody else have for the 9th? Does that look,
I have school
Well,
committee.
you got school committee? I knew there was a reason we put it on Thursday.
I mean, once a month, I can, I can try to make it happen, but if you want to schedule extra meetings, I just can't do it.
Yeah, well, I think this would be the March meeting would be the 10th, and if we had to have another one in March because we had to finalize something, we could make that a different day or something, to accommodate anybody, but we're trying to work around a couple of other set meetings as well. So let's go with the 10th at same time, 3:30, and do that. And I think, and there was the other one bucket that we had about things like, photocopier paper usage and things like that, but those seem to be more just policy issues, not anything really to research. There was that bucket, there was like the third bucket, I think, of I forget what it was, improved efficiency. No, it wasn't efficiencies. I forget, I put it away now. But anyway, there were 3 or 4 items in there that were really just focusing on just a written policy for staff more than really delving into cost details, I think. So
Yeah.
that's something that could come forward too, perhaps later on. But I think if we can just try to get more solid figures behind us on any of these topics, that would bode well for going forward with trying to make a few changes in this year's coming budget, because I'm sure we'll be challenged again with budgets. So,
Okay.
okay, does that
Sounds
sound
good.
okay to everybody?
Yes.
Is that somewhat clear? If
And
not-
I'll talk to you
Yes.
in the meantime between meetings here, because.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
We can
It-
go over a couple of things. And
Sure. And if anybody needs to reach out, needs help trying to figure out where to go with anything, just reach out and ask, and I'll try to play traffic cop and get everybody in the right direction of who can answer the question. How's that? Okay, but I think money wise for any of the costs in terms of current costs, I think Bradley's going to be your person to go to figure out that. And Bradley, if you've got something that you've looked at across departments, like you've said on things, like on supplies or whatever, I mean, feel free to even just, verify those with the department heads or whatever you need to do. But I mean, whatever helps you with your analysis would be great. So, okay. So if that's all set, I think I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Can I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? Just say
Aye.
aye. Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
right. Aye. Okay. Let's call ourselves adjourned at 5:05. And thank you very much, guys, for coming. We're getting there. It's a struggle. We think we might find some money hiding in the trees somewhere, but not yet. All right.
Okay.
Every
Thank
little
you.
bit helps.
Everybody.
It will.
Hey,
Everybody,
take
every
care.
little bit will help. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.